The cold steel of a gun barrel pressed against 8-year-old Ruby's temple as her father stood frozen in the grocery store aisle. "Don't move or she dies," the masked gunman screamed, his hand trembling with desperation. But Connor Walsh didn't panic. Instead, the single dad's eerily calm response would leave a watching CEO utterly speechless and change both their lives forever. This is a story about how one moment of impossible composure revealed a soldier's past, a billionaire's revenge plot, and the dangerous truth that some heroes never truly leave the battlefield. Stick with me until the end and comment your city below. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights of Henderson's grocery hummed their familiar tune on that Tuesday evening, casting harsh shadows between the produce displays and cereal aisles. Connor Walsh pushed the squeaky shopping cart with practiced patience, his weathered hands gripping the handle as his 8-year-old daughter Ruby skipped beside him, her pink sneakers lighting up with each bouncing step. "Dad, can we get the chocolate chip cookies, the ones with the dinosaurs on the package?" Ruby asked, her bright green eyes so much like her late mother's sparkling with hope. Connor glanced down at his daughter, a gentle smile creasing the corners of his eyes. "We've got cookie dough at home, remember? We were going to make them together tonight." "But homemade cookies don't have dinosaurs on them," Ruby protested with the kind of logic only an 8-year-old could muster. "We could make dinosaur-shaped cookies," Connor suggested, reaching for a gallon of milk. His flannel shirt worn soft from countless washes stretched across his broad shoulders as he moved. To anyone watching, he looked like what he claimed to be a small-town plumber, maybe early 30s, raising his daughter alone. Nothing more, nothing less. The store was quiet for a Tuesday evening. Mrs. Chen was examining avocados with the intensity of a diamond appraiser. Tommy, the teenage cashier with too much acne and not enough confidence, was restocking candy bars near the register. A couple argued quietly near the frozen foods about whether to buy organic or regular vegetables, the kind of mundane drama that played out in grocery stores across America every single day. And then there was her. The woman in the back corner near the wine section who didn't quite fit. She wore a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than most people in Henderson made in a month. Her black heels clicked against the linoleum with precision, not the casual shuffle of a small-town shopper. She held a bottle of wine, a Chateau Margaux that Henderson's grocery definitely didn't stock, but her eyes weren't on the label. They were on Connor. Connor noticed her, of course. 7 years out of Afghanistan, but some habits died hard. He'd clocked her the moment she'd entered the store 5 minutes after him. The way she moved with purpose, but tried to appear casual. The slight bulge near her hip that suggested a concealed carry permit, and the training to use it. The way her gaze kept finding him across the aisles, pretending to study products she had no intention of buying. But Connor had learned to ignore such things. He was just a plumber now, a single dad. Whatever this woman's interest, it wasn't his problem, unless she made it his problem. He had milk to buy and cookies to bake. "Dad, you're doing the thing again," Ruby said, tugging on his flannel. "What thing?" "The thing where you look at everything except what you're looking at. Mom used to say you did it when you were worried." Connor's chest tightened at the mention of Sarah. 3 years gone, and Ruby still found ways to bring her mother into everyday conversation, keeping her memory alive in the small moments. He knelt down to Ruby's level, his knees protesting slightly. Another reminder of miles humped through Afghan mountains. "I'm not worried, sweetheart. Just thinking about what else we need. Did we put eggs on the list?" Ruby pulled out the crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, her handwriting a mix of careful letters and creative spelling. "Eggs, milk, bread. I mean bread, and something that looks like I can't read my own writing." "Butter," Connor reminded her. "You wrote it when you were watching cartoons." The automatic doors at the front of the store chimed their electronic welcome. Connor's head snapped up instinctively, his body tensing before his mind even processed what he was seeing. The man who entered was wrong in every way that mattered. Ski mask in September, hands jammed in the pockets of a coat too heavy for the weather, the jerky, twitchy movements of someone riding high on adrenaline or something chemical. Connor's hand moved instinctively to push Ruby behind him as the man pulled out a Glock 19. Connor recognized the model instantly and fired a shot into the ceiling. "Everybody down now! This is a robbery!" The The sound crashed through the store like thunder. Ceiling tiles rained down in white chunks. Mrs. Chen screamed and dropped her avocados, which rolled across the floor like green grenades. The arguing couple near frozen foods hit the ground, the woman sobbing. Tommy the cashier stood frozen, his hands half raised, his face drained of color. "I said down!" The gunman swung the weapon wildly, his voice cracking with desperation. He was young, early 20s at most. Connor could tell from the voice. Scared, desperate, the most dangerous kind of armed robber because scared people made stupid decisions. Connor moved with practiced efficiency, dropping to one knee and pulling Ruby down with him, positioning his body between her and the gunman. His hand covered her head, pressing her face gently against his chest. "It's okay, baby. Just like we practiced during earthquake drills, remember? Keep your head down and breathe slowly." Ruby's small body trembled against him, but she didn't cry out. Brave girl. Too brave for 8 years old. Too much like her father. The woman in the suit had dropped too, but Connor noticed she'd positioned herself behind an end cap display that would provide decent cover if shooting started. Her hand hovered near her hip. Professional. Trained. But not military. Military training left different tells. Private sector maybe. Corporate security at a high level. "You," the gunman pointed at Tommy. "Empty the register. All of it. And the safe in the back." I don't have the combination to the safe," Tommy stammered, his voice barely audible. "Only Mr. Henderson has." "Then get Henderson." The gunman's hand was shaking now badly. The Glock waggled in the air like a conductor's baton having a seizure. "Where is he?" "He's not here. He went home at 5. Please, I can give you what's in the register." "That's not enough." The gunman's voice cracked, completely revealing his youth. "I need at least 10,000. They said if I don't—" He stopped himself, but Connor had heard enough. This wasn't a robbery. This was a collection. Someone had sent this kid to gather a debt, and the kid was in over his head, which made the situation infinitely more dangerous. The gunman spun around, waving the gun at the terrified customers on the floor. "Wallets, phones, jewelry. Everything. Put it all in." He looked around desperately, then grabbed a plastic shopping basket from near the door. "Put it in this." He started with the couple near frozen foods. The man fumbled with his wallet, his hand shaking so badly he could barely get it out of his pocket. The woman was trying to remove her wedding ring, sobbing that it wouldn't come off her fingers, swollen with panic. "Hurry up!" The gunman kicked the man's leg. Not hard, but enough to show he meant business. Or was trying to mean business. Connor could see the tells, the way the kid kept wiping his free hand on his jeans, the rapid breathing that was starting to hyperventilate, the way his finger kept moving on and off the trigger. This was about to go sideways, fast. The gunman moved to Mrs. Chen, who was fumbling with her purse, tears streaming down her face. Then to Tommy, who was still standing behind the counter like a statue. Then his eyes found Connor and Ruby. "You big guy, what have you got?" Connor met the gunman's eyes through the ski mask holes. Brown eyes. Bloodshot. Pupils dilated, but not from drugs, from fear. "My wallet's in my back pocket. I'm going to move slowly to get it. Don't try anything." The gun swung toward them, and that's when Connor felt Ruby's body go rigid with terror. Because the barrel wasn't pointed at Connor. It was pointed at her. "Please," Connor said, his voice dropping to something low and steady. The voice he'd used in Kandahar when talking to scared civilians. The voice that had convinced a teenage Taliban fighter to put down his rifle and walk away. "Point the gun at me, not her. She's just a kid." "Shut up. Just give me your wallet." Connor moved his hand slowly to his back pocket, but his eyes never left the gunman's. He was cataloging everything. The stance weight on the back foot unbalanced. The grip too tight, showing white knuckles even through thin gloves. The distance 8 feet, maybe 9. In his peripheral vision, he could see the woman in the suit had shifted position slightly, improving her angle. "Here," Connor said, pulling out his wallet. "There's about 200 in cash. You can have it all." The gunman snatched the basket and held it out. "Throw it in." Connor tossed the wallet into the basket, the movement slow and deliberate. "You don't want to do this, son." "Don't call me son, you don't know me." "You're right, I don't. But I know you're scared. I know someone's making you do this, and I know this isn't going to end the way you think. Shut up." The gun swung wildly, and Connor saw the finger tighten on the trigger. Not intentionally fear response. The kid was about to have a negligent discharge. Time slowed down the way it always did in these moments. Connor's mind ran through the calculations. Distance to the gunman, Ruby's position, the woman in the suit reaching for her concealed weapon, the trajectory if the kid's finger slipped. Everything could go wrong in the next 3 seconds. But then Ruby did something that changed everything. She started singing, soft at first, barely audible. The song Sarah used to sing to her during thunderstorms. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." The gunman's head snapped toward her. What is she doing? Make her stop. "You make me happy when skies are gray. She sings when she's scared," Connor said, keeping his voice level, conversational. "Her mom taught her that, said it was better than crying. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you." The gunman's hand was shaking worse now. The basket in his other hand dropped slightly. Just make her stop, please." And there it was, please. The mask slipping, revealing the scared kid underneath. "What's your name?" Connor asked. "What? No, shut up. My name's Connor. This is my daughter Ruby. The lady you robbed first is Mrs. Chen. She makes the best dim sum in town. That couple near the freezers just got engaged last week, saw it in the paper. Tommy there is saving up for college. We're all real people with real lives, just like you. Stop talking. You haven't hurt anyone yet." Connor continued, his voice steady as a heartbeat. "Right now, this is just robbery. You can walk away from robbery. But if that gun goes off, if someone gets hurt, everything changes. There's no walking away from that." The gunman's breathing was ragged now, almost sobbing. The gun dropped a few inches. "They'll kill me. If I don't get the money, they'll kill me." "Who will? I can't. I took something I shouldn't have. Sold it to the wrong people. Now I owe..." The kid was crying now, tears soaking through the ski mask. "I owe 10 grand by midnight, or they said they'd go after my sister." Connor felt something shift in his chest. Not sympathy exactly, but understanding. He'd seen too many young men forced into impossible situations. Some in Afghan villages, some in American streets. The circumstances changed, but the desperation was always the same. "How old is your sister?" "Some 14. She doesn't know about any of this. She thinks I'm clean. I've been clean for 2 years, I swear, but then I found this package in a car I was detailing, and I thought I could make some quick money. Just once. But it belonged to the Riverside crew, and now..." Riverside. Connor knew the name. Low-level dealers who thought they were bigger than they were, but vicious enough to make good on threats. The kid was right to be scared. "Listen to me," Connor said, shifting slightly. "My daughter is 8 years old. She lost her mom 3 years ago. I'm all she has, and right now you're pointing a gun at the only family she has left. I understand you're trying to protect your sister, but I'm asking you, father to brother, don't make my daughter an orphan, not for $10,000, not for anything." The gun wavered, dropped another inch. "I can help you," Connor said. "I know people who deal with situations like this. Put the gun down and we'll figure something out. But you have to put it down first." "You don't understand." The kid's voice broke completely. "You don't know these people." "I know enough," Connor said. And then, taking a calculated risk, he slowly stood up. "Don't move." The gun snapped back up, pointed directly at Connor's chest. "I'm standing up because I want to talk to you man to man, not from my knees." Connor kept his hands visible, palms out. "My daughter is scared. You're scared. Everyone in here is scared, but fear makes us do stupid things. Don't let fear make this choice for you." Ruby had stopped singing. She was watching her father with those green eyes, so much trust there, it made Connor's heart ache. In his peripheral vision, he saw the woman in the suit had drawn her weapon, but kept it low out of the gunman's line of sight. She was waiting for a clear shot. Connor gave a tiny shake of his head. "Not yet." "What's your name?" Connor asked again. The gunman was silent for a long moment. Then, "Marcus." "Marcus. Okay. Marcus, how old are you?" 22. Same age Connor had been when he'd enlisted, searching for purpose, for a way out of a dead-end life. He'd found it in the Rangers. Marcus had looked for it in all the wrong places. 22 is young Marcus. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Your sister's got her whole life. Don't throw it all away for one bad decision that snowballed. There's always another way. There's no other way. You don't get it by midnight. It's only 7:30. We have time. But first you need to put the gun down. Marcus's hand was shaking so badly now, the gun was almost vibrating. I can't. If I put it down, you'll call the cops. The cops are already on their way, Connor said honestly. Someone hit the silent alarm the moment you walked in. They're probably outside right now setting up a perimeter. But here's the thing, Marcus. If you put the gun down now, if you surrender, you're a scared kid who made a mistake. If this goes on much longer, if they have to come in here, you become something else. You become a threat that needs to be neutralized. It was a lie about the silent alarm, at least Connor hadn't seen anyone hit it. But police response time in Henderson was about 12 minutes for an armed robbery, and they were already at the 6-minute mark. Time was running out for everyone. I didn't mean for this to happen, Marcus said, and now he was definitely crying. I just needed the money. I was going to pay it back, I swear. I believe you. Connor took a small step forward. The woman in the suit tensed. Everyone in the store held their breath. But right now you need to make a choice. The right choice. Put the gun down, Marcus. The gun dropped another inch, then another. It was now pointed at the floor between them. My sister, Marcus whispered. We'll figure it out. I promise. But first, the sound of sirens split the air. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. Marcus's head whipped toward the front windows where red and blue lights were starting to paint the parking lot. No! The gun came back up wild, now swinging between Connor and the windows. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Marcus, listen to me. They're here. It's over. It's all over. The kid was in full panic now, the gun waving erratically. His finger was on the trigger tightening. Connor saw it all in slow motion, the gun swinging toward the windows, toward Tommy, toward the couple, coming back around toward him and Ruby. The woman in the suit raising her weapon about to take the shot. The police cars screeching into the parking lot, everything about to explode into chaos and violence. He made his decision. Connor moved. Not toward Marcus that would have triggered a shooting. Instead, he dropped back down, covering Ruby completely with his body, and called out in his command voice the voice that had carried across Afghan battlefields. Marcus, look at me. Look at me. The gunman's wild eyes found his. You have 10 seconds before they come through that door. 10 seconds to decide who you want to be. The man who surrendered and nobody got hurt, or the man who got people killed. 10 seconds. Marcus, choose. Marcus stood frozen, the gun still raised, tears streaming down his face under the ski mask. Think about your sister, Connor said. Think about what she'd want you to do. 8 seconds. Think about going to her graduation, her wedding, being there for her. 6 seconds. You can still have that, but only if you put the gun down. 4 seconds. Please, Marcus, be the brother she needs you to be. 2 seconds. Marcus dropped the gun. It clattered on the linoleum like thunder. He fell to his knees, ripping off the ski mask, revealing a young face twisted with anguish and relief. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Hands where we can see them. The police burst through the doors, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus put his hands up, lacing them behind his head without being told. Don't shoot, Connor called out, still covering Ruby. He's surrendering. The weapon is on the ground. Nobody's hurt. The woman in the suit had already holstered her weapon and melted back behind the wine display, just another terrified customer. But Connor had seen her stance, her draw, her discipline. Professional indeed. The police swarmed Marcus, cuffing him and pulling him to his feet. One officer kicked the gun away while another began checking on the customers. Connor finally sat up, pulling Ruby into his arms. It's okay, baby. It's all over. Ruby buried her face in his chest, finally letting the tears come. I was so scared, Daddy. I know, sweetheart. You were so brave. So brave. Is that man going to be okay? Connor watched as they led Marcus toward the door. The kid looked back once, meeting Connor's eyes, and mouthed 2 words, thank you. I think so, Connor told his daughter. Sometimes people make bad choices when they're scared, but he made the right choice at the end. Like you did, you helped him. We helped each other. An officer approached them. Sergeant Mills Connor recognized him from around town. Sir, we need to get statements from everyone. Are you and your daughter okay? We're fine, Connor said, standing up with Ruby in his arms. Just shaken up. That was what you did? Mills shook his head. That was incredible. You talked him down, probably saved lives. Connor shrugged. Just didn't want anyone to get hurt. Mills gave him a long look, the kind cops gave when they recognized someone who'd been in situations like this before. But he didn't push. We'll need you to come to the station, give a full statement. Can it wait until tomorrow? I'd like to get my daughter home. Mills looked at Ruby's tear-stained face and nodded. Tomorrow's fine. You know where we are. As the officer moved away, Connor noticed the woman in the suit approaching. Up close, he could see she was in her early 30s, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. Definitely not a typical Henderson resident doing her evening shopping. That was impressive, she said, her voice carrying a slight Boston accent that she was trying to hide. Your training is showing. Connor shifted Ruby to his other arm, putting himself slightly between the woman and his daughter. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm just a plumber. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course you are. A plumber who can assess tactical situations, identify weapon models at a glance, and de-escalate an armed confrontation using textbook crisis negotiation techniques. I watch a lot of cop shows. I'm sure you do. She reached into her suit pocket and pulled out a business card. Expensive cardstock minimalist design. Just a name, Rebecca Morrison, and a phone number. No company, no title. I'd like to talk to you when you're ready. Connor didn't take the card. About what? About a job opportunity. One that would make better use of your plumbing skills. I'm happy fixing pipes. Are you... She glanced at Ruby, who was watching her with those bright green eyes. Wouldn't you like to give her more private schools, college fund, a house in a better neighborhood? Our neighborhood is fine. Is it Henderson's nice, but it's not exactly safe, is it? I mean, armed robberies in grocery stores. Connor's expression hardened. We're done here. Rebecca Morrison held up her hands in surrender, but she was still smiling. My mistake. I'll leave you be. She set the card on a nearby shelf. But that offer stands. Whenever you're ready to stop pretending to be something you're not. She walked away, her heels clicking on the linoleum with that same precise rhythm. Connor watched her go, noting the slight favor of her left leg, old injury probably compensated with custom orthotics in those expensive shoes. She'd been in the field once before moving to whatever she did now. Dad, Ruby's voice was small. Who was that lady? Nobody important, sweetheart. She seemed to know you. Sometimes people think they know us, but they only see what they want to see. Ruby was quiet for a moment, processing this in that way children do, filing it away to think about later. Then, can we still make cookies tonight? Connor hugged her tighter, kissing the top of her head. Absolutely. Dinosaur-shaped ones, just like we planned. They left the store together, walking past the police cars and the gathering crowd of looky-loos. Connor didn't look back, didn't pick up the business card Rebecca Morrison had left behind. He had cookies to bake a daughter, to comfort, and a normal life to maintain. But as he buckled Ruby into her booster seat, he caught a glimpse of a black BMW parked across the street. Rebecca Morrison was behind the wheel watching them. When she saw him looking, she gave a small nod and drove away. Connor stood there for a moment, hand on the car door, watching the BMW's taillights disappear into the darkness. 7 years he'd been out. 7 years of being just another face in the crowd, just another single dad trying to make ends meet. He'd thought he'd left all of it behind, the violence, the adrenaline, the weight of command decisions that meant life or death. But it never really left you, did it? It just waited dormant until moments like this, until scared kids with guns made bad decisions, until mysterious women with concealed weapons and job offers appeared in small-town grocery stores. Dad, Ruby called from inside the car. Are we going home? Yeah, baby, we're going home. Connor got in the driver's seat and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he could see the police finishing up at the store. Marcus was probably halfway to the station by now, heading for a holding cell and an uncertain future. Connor made a mental note to check on the kid, maybe put in a word with the public defender. The Riverside crew was a problem that would need addressing, but that was tomorrow's issue. Tonight he had cookies to bake with his daughter. As they drove through Henderson's quiet streets, Ruby began to sing again, soft and sweet. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Connor smiled despite everything. Sarah would have been proud of how brave their little girl had been, how she'd kept her composure even when terrified, how she'd found her voice when it mattered most. Dad, Ruby said suddenly. That man Marcus, he was somebody's family too, wasn't he? Yes, sweetheart, he was. And he was trying to protect them, like you protect me. Connor glanced at her in the mirror, 8 years old and already understanding that the world wasn't painted in simple blacks and whites. That's right. Sometimes good people make bad choices trying to do the right thing. Is that why you helped him instead of hurting him? The question hung in the air between them. Connor thought about how to explain the complexities of violence and mercy to a child who'd just had a gun pointed at her. There's always a choice, Ruby. Always another way if you look hard enough. Violence should be the last option, never the first. Is that what you learned fixing pipes? Connor almost laughed. Something like that. They pulled into their driveway, the porch light casting a warm glow across the small but well-maintained yard. Home. Safe. Normal. Everything Connor had worked to build for the past 7 years. But as he helped Ruby out of the car, he noticed something that made his instincts flare. The front door was exactly as they'd left it locked, no signs of forced entry. But the garden gnome Ruby had insisted on buying at a yard sale last month had been moved, just an inch to the left, barely noticeable. Someone had been here. Connor kept his expression neutral, not wanting to alarm Ruby. Hey, sweetheart, why don't you go around back and get the cookie cutters from the shed? I'll unlock the front door. By myself. You're brave enough. Just flip on the back light first. Ruby puffed up with pride at being trusted with this task and ran around the side of the house. Connor waited until she was out of sight, then approached the front door carefully. No other signs of disturbance. Nothing obviously wrong. But that gnome. He unlocked the door and pushed it open with his foot staying behind the frame. The living room was exactly as they'd left it. Ruby's homework on the coffee table, his coffee mug from this morning by the couch, the photo of Sarah on the mantel catching the light from the street. Connor stepped inside, moving silently through the house. Kitchen clear, bathroom clear, Ruby's room clear, though he noticed Mr. Buttons. Her stuffed bear had been moved from the bed to the chair. His room. There it was, on his nightstand next to the alarm clock and the book he'd been reading. Another business card. Same expensive stock as Rebecca Morrison's, but this one had writing on the back. Your skills are being wasted. She needs more than this. You both do. R.M. Connor picked up the card, anger flashing through him. She'd been in his house, in his daughter's room. The violation of it made his hands clench. But under the anger was something else. Curiosity. Rebecca Morrison had resources skills and the audacity to break into an ex-Ranger's home just to leave a calling card. She was either very confident or very stupid, and Connor didn't think she was stupid. Dad, I got the cookie cutters. Ruby's voice carried from the kitchen. Connor pocketed the card and headed downstairs, pushing thoughts of Rebecca Morrison aside. Right now his daughter needed normal, needed cookies and bedtime stories, and the assurance that the world was safe and predictable. But later, after Ruby was asleep, Connor stood at his bedroom window looking out at the quiet street. Somewhere out there, Rebecca Morrison was waiting for his call. Marcus was sitting in a cell, terrified about his sister's safety. The Riverside crew was counting their money and making plans. 7 years of peace. 7 years of being invisible. Connor looked at the business card again, then at the photo of Sarah he kept on his dresser. She smiled back at him, frozen in time, forever young, forever gone. What would you tell me to do? He whispered to the photo. But he already knew the answer. Sarah had always said he was meant for more than the violence of war, that his skills, his training, his instincts, they could be used to help people, not just hurt them. She'd been the one to convince him to leave the Rangers to try for a normal life. But maybe normal wasn't enough anymore. Maybe Rebecca Morrison, whoever she really was, had a point. Maybe there was a way to be both the father Ruby needed and the soldier he'd never really stopped being. Connor set the card down and went to check on Ruby one more time. She was asleep. Mr. Buttons clutched in her arms, her face peaceful. No nightmares yet. They'd come later, he knew. The mind needed time to process trauma, and an 8-year-old mind would struggle with what had happened tonight. He stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe. Everything he did, every choice he made, it all came down to her. Keeping her safe, giving her a good life, being the father she deserved. But what if being that father meant being something more than just a plumber in a small town? What if it meant using his skills to make sure kids like Marcus didn't end up desperate and dangerous? What if it meant taking whatever job Rebecca Morrison was offering? Too many questions for one night. Connor closed Ruby's door gently and went back to his room. He'd think about it tomorrow. Talk to Marcus's public defender. Check on the kid's sister. Make sure the Riverside crew understood that Marcus was off limits now. And maybe, just maybe, he'd call the number on that business card. But not tonight. Tonight he'd stand watch like he always did. Listen to the sounds of the house settling, count Ruby's breaths from down the hall. Remember Sarah's laugh and the way she used to steal the covers. Outside, a car drove slowly past the house. Connor noted it without moving from his position on the bed sedan 4-door government plates. The FBI would be getting involved, now armed robbery being a federal crime if they wanted to push it. They'd want to talk to the man who'd talked down the gunman. They'd run his prints from the wallet Marcus had handled, find his service records, start asking questions. 7 years of being invisible shattered in a single evening. Connor smiled grimly in the darkness. Maybe it was time anyway. Maybe Ruby deserved a father who wasn't hiding from his past, but using it to build a better future. The car passed by again, slower this time. They were watching the house, making sure the hero of the hour didn't disappear in the night. They needn't have worried. Connor Walsh wasn't going anywhere. This was his home, his town, his daughter's safe place. But things were going to change. He could feel it in the air like the pressure drop before a storm. Rebecca Morrison's appearance, Marcus's desperate robbery, the FBI's interest, they were all pieces of something larger, patterns forming in the darkness, waiting to be understood. Connor closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Too much adrenaline still in his system, too many ghosts stirring. In Afghanistan, after missions like this, he'd have his team to decompress with. Now it was just him and the silence and the weight of decisions yet to be made. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again immediately. Same number. On the third call, he answered. Walsh. Mr. Walsh. The voice was male official, trying to sound more important than it probably was. This is Special Agent David Park with the FBI. We'd like to speak with you about tonight's incident. I'm giving my statement to local police tomorrow. We'd prefer to handle this ourselves. National security implications. Connor almost laughed. A grocery store robbery has national security implications. You tell me, Sergeant Major Walsh, or should I say former Sergeant Major. 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart. Quite a record for someone who's been fixing pipes for the past 7 years. So they'd already run him. Fast work. That's ancient history. Is it? A man with your training just happens to be in the right place at the right time to prevent what could have been a massacre. That's quite a coincidence. Life's full of coincidences. We'd like to discuss those coincidences. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Federal Building downtown. I'll be taking my daughter to school at 9. 9:30 then. Agent Park, am I under arrest? So, no. Under investigation. Not at this time. Then I'll come in when I'm ready, if I decide to come in at all. Have a good night. He hung up. The phone immediately started buzzing again, but Connor turned it off. Let them stew. He wasn't some rookie they could push around with vague threats and official voices. But their interest was troubling. They jumped on this too fast, shown too much interest in a simple robbery. Either they'd been watching him already, or Rebecca Morrison had connections that went higher than he'd thought. A soft knock at his door made him tense. Dad? Come in, sweetheart. Ruby patted in, Mr. Buttons dragging behind her. I had a bad dream. Connor lifted the covers and she climbed in beside him, curling into his side the way she had as a toddler. Want to talk about it? The bad man was there, but this time his gun was bigger. And there were more bad men. And they hurt you. Connor pulled her close. Just a dream, baby. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. Dad, why did that lady say you were pretending to be something you're not? Kids heard everything, remembered everything. Connor chose his words carefully. Before you were born, before I met your mom, I had a different job. I was a soldier, like in the army. Something like that. Did you stop being a soldier when I was born? I stopped when I met your mom. She showed me there were other ways to help people. Ruby was quiet for a moment, processing. But you helped that man tonight, the scared one with the gun. You helped him like a soldier would. Maybe a little. Is that bad? No, sweetheart, it's not bad. Sometimes we need to use all parts of ourselves to help others. Are you going to be a soldier again? Connor looked down at his daughter's face in the darkness. Those green eyes so much like Sarah's, seeing too much understanding more than any 8-year-old should. I don't know, he said honestly. But whatever I do, wherever I go, whatever I become, I'll always be your dad first. That's the most important job I'll ever have. Ruby smiled and snuggled closer. Okay, but if you do become a soldier again, can you still make cookies with me? Always. She was asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out. Her small hand clutched in his shirt. Connor held her close, standing watch against her nightmares and his own. Outside, the sedan made another pass. In the distance, a siren wailed. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably lying awake in a cell, wondering how his life had gone so wrong. And somewhere else, Rebecca Morrison was probably sitting in an expensive hotel room waiting for Connor to make his decision. But here now, in this moment, Connor Walsh was just a father holding his daughter, keeping the darkness at bay for one more night. Tomorrow would bring its complications, FBI agents, and mysterious job offers, and the chaos of a world that wouldn't let him stay hidden. But tonight he had this: Ruby's warmth against his side, the quiet of their small house, the photos of Sarah watching over them both. It was enough. It had to be enough. Until it wasn't. The morning came too soon, bringing with it the harsh reality of decisions that couldn't be postponed. Connor stood at the kitchen counter making Ruby's favorite breakfast pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, while she sat at the table unusually quiet for a girl who normally chattered nonstop about everything from her favorite cartoon to why clouds looked like cotton candy. You okay, sweetheart? Connor asked, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. Ruby pushed her orange juice around in circles. Tommy's mom called Mrs. Peterson last night. She said Tommy won't be working at the grocery store anymore. She said what happened was too scary. Connor set the pancake on her plate, adding a smiley face with syrup. People react to scary things differently. Tommy's mom just wants to keep him safe. But you kept me safe, and we still went home to the same house. That's because we're tougher than most people, Connor said, sitting down across from her. But being tough doesn't mean we weren't scared. It just means we don't let fear make our choices for us. Ruby took a bite of pancake, considering this. The lady from last night, Miss Morrison, she wasn't scared at all. I saw her. When everyone else was on the ground, she was watching, like she was waiting for something. Connor's hand paused halfway to his coffee mug. You noticed that? Mom always said I notice everything. She said I got that from you. Before Connor could respond, his phone rang. The elementary school. Mr. Walsh. This is Principal Roberts. I'm calling to check on Ruby after what happened last night. The whole town's talking about it. She's doing okay, all things considered. We'll be there for school as usual. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Given the circumstances, if Ruby needs a few days... Routine is important, Connor interrupted. She needs normal right now. Of course, but Mr. Walsh, there will be questions. From other parents, from the children. Are you prepared for that? Connor looked at Ruby, who was now making her pancake do a swimming motion through the syrup pool. We'll handle it. After hanging up, Connor noticed a black sedan parked across the street, different from last night's, but equally obvious. The FBI wasn't being subtle about their surveillance. Dad, there's a car outside, Ruby said, proving once again that nothing escaped her attention. I know. Are they bad guys? No, just people doing their job. What job requires sitting in a car watching our house? Sometimes Connor wished his daughter wasn't quite so sharp. Complicated adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. Ruby gave him a look that was pure Sarah, the one that said she knew he was dodging the question, but would let it slide. For now. After dropping Ruby at school, enduring the stares and whispers of other parents, Connor didn't drive to the federal building. Instead, he headed to the county jail. Marcus Williams, he'd learned the kid's last name from the morning news, needed to know someone gave a damn about what happened to him. The desk sergeant, a thick-necked man named Kowalski, whom Connor knew from the VA poker games, looked surprised to see him. "Connor Walsh, heard you were quite the hero last night." "Just didn't want anyone hurt. I'm here to see Marcus Williams." Kowalski frowned. "The robbery suspect you pressing additional charges?" "Opposite. I want to talk to him. As a visitor." "That's unusual. He hasn't even been arraigned yet." "Can you make it happen or not?" Kowalski made a call, spoke in low tones, then nodded. 15 minutes, room 3. The visiting room was every depressing cliché Connor expected. Harsh fluorescent lights scratched plexiglass phones that had seen better decades. Marcus was already there when Connor arrived, looking smaller in the orange jumpsuit, younger without the ski mask and gun. Marcus picked up the phone with shaking hands. "Why are you here?" "To make sure you're okay. I held a gun on your daughter. Why would you care if I'm okay?" "Because you're someone's family too. Your sister, what's her name?" Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "Jasmine. She's gonna find out. It'll be in the papers online. Everyone at her school will know her brother's a criminal." "You made a mistake. That doesn't define who you are." "Doesn't it?" "I'm looking at 5 to 10 years, my public defender says. If I'm lucky. The Riverside crew will get to Jasmine long before I'm out." Connor leaned forward. "Tell me about the Riverside crew." "Everything." "Why, you can't..." Marcus stopped studying Connor's face. "You're not really just a plumber, are you? The way you talked to me last night, the way you moved. You're something else." "I used to be. Now I'm just a dad who doesn't want to see more kids hurt. So tell me about Riverside." Marcus glanced around nervously, even though they were alone. "They're run by a guy named Dante Powell, operates out of a body shop on the east side. Maybe 30 guys total, but they've got connections to bigger operations in the city. I detailed a car that turned out to belong to one of their dealers. Found a package hidden in the door panel, heroin, about 2 pounds. I should have left it alone, but I thought, you thought you could sell it yourself, make some quick money. My grandmother's medical bills were killing us. Jasmine needed money for a school trip she'd been dreaming about. I'd been clean for 2 years working honest jobs, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough." Connor understood that desperation. After Sarah's death, the medical bills had nearly bankrupted him. If he hadn't had his military benefits, he and Ruby would have lost everything. "So you took the package." "Sold it to some guys from the north side, made $8 grand. Thought I was free and clear until Dante's people grabbed me last week. Turns out that package was already bought and paid for. Now I owe them the 10 grand plus interest, daily interest. And they threatened Jasmine." Marcus nodded, tears flowing freely now. "Showed me pictures of her at school at dance practice, walking home. Said if I didn't get the money by midnight last night, where is she now? With my grandmother. They don't know where we moved them to my aunt's place 2 towns over. But it's only a matter of time before they find them." Connor made a mental calculation. The Riverside crew was small time enough that they probably didn't have the resources for an extensive search, but big enough to make good on their threats eventually. "Marcus, I need you to listen carefully. Don't take any deals yet. Don't plead out. Your public defender, what's their name? Susan Chen. I'll talk to her. In the meantime, keep your head down. Don't talk to anyone else about this. And whatever you do, don't mention my name to anyone. Understand? Why are you helping me?" Connor stood to leave. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because your sister deserves a brother who comes home." As Connor left the jail, he noticed the black sedan had been joined by a second one. The FBI was getting impatient. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number Agent Park had called from the night before. "Agent Park, this is Connor Walsh. You want to talk Henderson's Diner 20 minutes. Come alone or I don't show." He hung up before Park could respond. Henderson's Diner was a local institution, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers stood out like sore thumbs. Connor chose a booth in the back corner where he could see both entrances and the kitchen old habits. Agent Park arrived exactly on time, looking every inch the federal agent in his dark suit and trying too hard to appear casual. He was younger than his voice had suggested, maybe early 30s, with the kind of aggressive ambition that made people stupid. "Mr. Walsh, thank you for meeting me." Connor didn't respond, just sipped his coffee and waited. Park pulled out a tablet, making a show of scrolling through files. "Interesting reading your service record, especially the classified parts. If they're classified, you shouldn't be reading them in a public diner." Park flushed slightly. "The point is, we know who you are, what you're capable of, and we're curious why someone with your skill set is wasting away in a town like Henderson." "I'm raising my daughter. That's not wasting away. But it's not using your full potential either. Is it? The private sector must have made offers. Security firms, military contractors. The kind of money that would set your daughter up for life." Connor set down his coffee cup carefully. "Agent Park, why don't you tell me what you really want? Because this isn't about last night's robbery." Park leaned back, trying to project confidence he didn't quite have. "Rebecca Morrison. That name mean anything to you?" "She introduced herself last night." "That's not her real name. Rebecca Morrison doesn't exist. The woman you met is a ghost in our system. Professional alias, no real identity we can trace. But she's been linked to several high-profile corporate espionage cases, possible assassination of a federal judge 3 years ago, and about a dozen other crimes we can't quite prove." Connor kept his expression neutral, but his mind was racing. Rebecca Morrison had seemed dangerous, but this was another level entirely. "And you think I'm connected to her?" "I think she came to Henderson specifically for you. The robbery was just fortunate timing, or maybe she orchestrated it. Either way, she made contact, and we need to know why." "She offered me a job. I declined. That's simple." "That's simple." Park pulled out a photograph, a surveillance shot of Rebecca Morrison from last night. "This woman is dangerous, Mr. Walsh. If she contacts you again." "I'll handle it." "You'll handle it." "Mr. Walsh, this is a federal investigation." Connor stood up, tossing a 10 on the table for his coffee. "Agent Park, I did my time serving this country. I've got an honorable discharge and a daughter to raise. Unless you're charging me with something, we're done here. We could make your life difficult." Connor leaned down, his voice dropping to the tone that had made Taliban fighters surrender. "Son, I've had difficult. I've been shot, blown up, and watched friends die in places you can't even pronounce. You think some junior FBI agent throwing his weight around scares me? You want to surveillance my house? Follow me around. Waste taxpayer dollars, go ahead. But if you come near my daughter, if you interfere with her life in any way, you'll learn what difficult really means." Park swallowed hard. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. Have a nice day, Agent." Connor walked out, noting the 2 agents in a car outside, trying to look inconspicuous. As he drove away, he caught them scrambling to follow. Amateur hour. But Park's information about Rebecca Morrison was troubling. Corporate espionage was one thing, but assassination. That changed the calculus entirely. What did someone like that want with a small-town plumber? His phone buzzed. Unknown number, but somehow Connor knew who it would be. "Hello, Rebecca, or should I call you something else?" Her laugh was rich, amused. "Rebecca is fine for now. I hear you've been busy this morning, visiting poor Marcus, intimidating federal agents. Not very plumber-like behavior. How did you never mind? What do you want?" "To offer you a solution to several problems. Marcus owes $10,000 to some very unpleasant people. You need that problem to go away. I can make it happen. In exchange for a conversation, face-to-face, somewhere public if it makes you feel safer." Connor thought about Jasmine Williams, 14 years old, looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life, about Marcus rotting in prison while his sister grew up without him. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. Neutral ground. Appropriate name, don't you think? 1 hour. If this is a setup. Connor. May I call you Connor? If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't need a setup. I broke into your house last night just to leave a business card. I could have done anything, but I didn't, because I need you willing, not coerced. The line went dead. Connor sat in his truck for a moment, weighing his options. The smart play was to walk away to ignore Rebecca Morrison and her offers to let the FBI handle whatever she was involved in. But smart had never been his strong suit, and there was Marcus to consider, and Jasmine, and the nagging feeling that Rebecca Morrison showing up in Henderson was no coincidence. He made 2 more stops before heading to the coffee shop. First to see Susan Chen, Marcus's public defender. She was younger than expected, maybe fresh out of law school, overwhelmed and underpaid, but with fire in her eyes. "Mr. Walsh, I don't usually discuss cases with... I want to pay Marcus's bail when it's set, anonymously." She blinked. "That's generous? But bail for armed robbery could be substantial. 50,000, maybe more." "I'll handle it. Also, the Riverside crew that's threatening him, I'm working on that. Tell Marcus to hold on." "Mr. Walsh, I can't advise you to take any illegal action. I'm not planning anything illegal, just solving problems." His second stop was home, where he retrieved something from the safe he'd installed in the basement. The Sig Sauer P226 felt familiar in his hand, like shaking hands with an old friend. 7 years since he'd carried, but some things the body never forgot. He tucked it under his flannel, grabbed a few other items, then headed to meet Rebecca Morrison. Neutral Ground Coffee Shop was one of those aggressively hip places that had sprouted up as Henderson tried to attract young professionals. Exposed brick industrial fixtures, baristas with more piercings than fingers. Rebecca Morrison looked out of place and completely at ease, simultaneously sitting in a corner booth wearing different clothes from last night. Jeans, a cashmere sweater looking like any other soccer mom grabbing afternoon coffee. Connor slid into the seat across from her. "The FBI says you're dangerous." "The FBI says a lot of things. How many are true?" "They say Rebecca Morrison doesn't exist." She smiled, stirring her latte with deliberate slowness. "Rebecca Morrison exists as much as Connor Walsh the plumber does. We are who we need to be." "Who were you before?" "Does it matter?" "Who were you before you became a father? Before you became a soldier? We're all just layers of identity, each one as real as the last." Pretty philosophical for a corporate spy. "Is that what they told you I am?" She seemed genuinely amused. "I suppose that's one layer. I've been many things. Right now I'm someone who needs your particular skills." "I'm just a plumber." "You're a former ranger who talked down an armed robber, intimidated a federal agent, and is currently carrying a Sig Sauer, despite not having done so for 7 years. The weight distribution of your shirt changed. You're favoring your right side slightly, and you've checked the exits 3 times since sitting down." Connor leaned back, observant. "It's what I do, among other things, like breaking into people's homes. I needed to verify some things. Your daughter's room, for instance. No photos of her mother. She keeps them hidden in a box under her bed. She's protecting you from painful memories. Remarkable emotional intelligence for an 8-year-old. Connor's hand moved toward the cig. "You stay away from my daughter." "Relax. I have no interest in harming Ruby. Quite the opposite. I think she deserves better than watching her father slowly die inside while pretending to be satisfied with mediocrity." "Careful." Rebecca pulled out a tablet, slid it across the table. On the screen was a photo of a man Connor didn't recognize, heavy-set, tattooed, cruel eyes. "Dante Powell," she said. "The man threatening Marcus Williams and his sister. Former Marine dishonorable discharge for drug trafficking. Now runs the Riverside crew and has ambitions of expanding. He's also responsible for 3 murders the police can't prove and the overdose deaths of at least a dozen teenagers." "Why do you care?" "I don't particularly, but you do. And I need you to care about what I care about. So consider this a gesture of good faith." She swiped to another screen, financial records. "Dante keeps his money in several accounts, but the main one is here. $14 million. Drug money, but laundered well enough that it looks almost legitimate. I can make it disappear. Make him disappear if necessary. The Riverside crew would collapse within days. Marcus's debt would become irrelevant. And in return, you work for me. Security consulting officially. Your background makes it plausible. The pay is substantial, $500,000 a year to start. Ruby gets the best schools, the best opportunities, the best life you can give her." "What's the real job?" Rebecca's expression shifted, becoming something harder, more focused. "There's a man. A judge, actually. James Wellington. Respected, powerful, connected. Also responsible for destroying dozens of lives through corruption and false convictions. The FBI can't touch him. He owns too many people. The justice system can't touch him. He is the justice system. But I can touch him. With your help. Connor studied her face, seeing the personal stakes hidden beneath the professional veneer. He hurt someone you cared about. He destroyed everything I cared about. But that's my story, not yours. What matters is that taking him down would be justice, real justice, not the pretend kind that happens in courtrooms. You mean revenge? Sometimes they're the same thing. Connor was quiet for a moment, thinking about Marcus in his cell, about Jasmine looking over her shoulder, about Ruby asking why bad things happen to good people. If I say no, then you go back to your life. Marcus goes to prison. His sister lives in fear. You keep fixing pipes and dying slowly inside while telling yourself it's for Ruby's own good. And Wellington continues destroying lives with impunity. And if I say yes, Rebecca smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. Then we save Marcus, protect his sister, secure Ruby's future, and maybe, just maybe, we make the world a slightly better place. Or at least a slightly more just one. Connor thought about the cig's weight against his ribs, about the skills he'd spent 7 years trying to forget about the photo of Sarah on his nightstand, and what she'd want him to do. Dante Powell first, he said. We solve that problem, then we talk about Wellington. Deal. Rebecca extended her hand across the table. Her grip was firm, calloused in places that suggested weapons training. Welcome to the real world, Connor Walsh. As they shook hands, Connor noticed movement outside the FBI surveillance team had found them. Park was going to be pissed. We have company, he said. Rebecca didn't even look. They've been there for 10 minutes. Sloppy tail job. Don't worry, they can't hear us and they won't interfere. The FBI's interest in me is complicated. Complicated how I occasionally do work for them. Unofficial work. The kind that doesn't appear in reports or budget meetings. Agent Park doesn't know that, of course. He's too junior, but his superiors do. Connor shook his head. So you're a government asset. Sometimes. Sometimes I'm a private contractor. Sometimes I'm a ghost. Today, I'm your employer. The question is, are you ready to stop pretending to be just a plumber? Connor thought about Ruby that morning, noticing everything, understanding too much. She was growing up in a world that wouldn't always be kind or fair. He could either teach her to hide from it like he'd been doing, or teach her to face it with strength and intelligence. I need to pick up my daughter from school in an hour. Of course. Family comes first. Always. That's why I chose you, Connor. You understand what matters. Most people in our line of work forget. They become the mission, lose their humanity. But you held your daughter while she sang to a gunman. You visited the kid who threatened you. You still have your soul. You don't know me. I know enough. I know Sarah died of cancer 3 years ago. I know you blame yourself for not being there during her last months because you were deployed. I know you've been punishing yourself ever since by living this half-life. And I know Ruby deserves a father who's fully present, not just going through the motions. Connor stood abruptly. We're done for today. Of course. But Connor Dante Powell will be at his body shop tonight, alone counting money. He always is on Wednesdays. Do with that information what you will. She slid a car key across the table. Black Suburban parked around the corner. Clean registration, untraceable, in case you need it. Connor left the key on the table and walked out. But as he passed the Suburban, he paused. Through the tinted windows, he could see tactical gear communications equipment and what looked like surveillance photos of the Riverside cruise operation. Rebecca Morrison had been planning this for a while. At school pickup, Ruby ran to him with her usual enthusiasm, backpack bouncing artwork clutched in her hand. Dad, look what I made. It's you as a superhero. The drawing showed a figure in blue, presumably him standing protectively over a smaller figure in pink. Around them were other people, all safe under the superhero's watch. It's beautiful, sweetheart, but I'm not a superhero. Mrs. Martinez says anyone who protects people is a hero. And you protected everyone last night, even the bad guy. As they drove home, Connor noticed Ruby was quieter than usual, staring out the window at the familiar streets. What's on your mind, kiddo? Melissa's mom said we can't have play dates anymore. She said our family attracts trouble. Connor's grip tightened on the steering wheel. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That's not fair. It's okay. Melissa was boring anyway. She doesn't like dinosaurs or Ninja Turtles. Ruby paused. Dad, are we trouble magnets? No, baby. Sometimes trouble just finds good people, but that doesn't mean we stop being good. That evening after Ruby was asleep, Connor stood in his garage looking at his plumbing van. 7 years of honest work, 7 years of hiding, 7 years of pretending the skills that had kept his squad alive in Afghanistan could be forgotten. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, a photo of Jasmine Williams at her aunt's house taken from across the street. The Riverside crew had found her. Connor deleted the text and went inside to his basement. From the safe, he pulled out items he'd sworn he'd never need again. Body armor that still fit. Night vision goggles that still worked. Skills that had never really gone dormant, just waiting. He thought about calling Rebecca Morrison, accepting her offer officially. But this wasn't about her or her agenda. This was about a 14-year-old girl who deserved to sleep without fear, and her brother who'd made one stupid mistake that shouldn't cost him everything. Connor looked at the photo of Sarah he kept in the basement, hidden from Ruby's protective eyes. I tried to be normal, he told the photo. I really did. But maybe normal isn't what she needs. Maybe she needs someone who fights back. Sarah smiled back, frozen in time, unable to offer absolution or condemnation. Connor geared up with methodical precision. The cig went into a shoulder holster, knife in his boot, flex cuffs in his back pocket. He wasn't going to war, but he wasn't going to let Dante Powell hurt any more kids either. As he prepared to leave, he wrote a note for Ruby in case something went wrong. Gone to fix an emergency leak. Be back before breakfast. I love you more than all the stars. Dad. Then Connor Walsh, plumber and single father, walked out into the night to remember what he'd tried so hard to forget, that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to become the dangerous thing that evil feared. The black Suburban was still parked where Rebecca had said it would be. The key was in a magnetic box under the rear wheel well, inside everything he might need and several things he hoped he wouldn't. Connor sat behind the wheel for a moment, engine off, making his choice. Once he drove away, there would be no going back to the simple life. The FBI would know. Rebecca would know. Most importantly, he would know that the soldier had never really left, had just been waiting for a reason to return. He thought about Ruby's drawing the superhero protecting everyone. Then he thought about Marcus in his cell and Jasmine in danger. Connor started the engine. Some choices he realized weren't really choices at all. They were just recognition of who you'd always been underneath the disguise of normal life. And Connor Walsh had always been a protector, whether in Afghan mountains or American suburbs. Time to remind Dante Powell that some people weren't meant to be threatened. Time to stop pretending to be just a plumber. The body shop sat on the edge of Henderson's industrial district, a corrugated metal building that looked abandoned until you noticed the expensive cars parked in the back and the security cameras that actually worked. Connor had been watching for 2 hours from across the street, cataloging patterns, counting guards mapping exits. The soldiers' patients, not the plumbers. Dante Powell was inside just as Rebecca had predicted. His custom Escalade was parked by the rear entrance, gleaming under the security lights. 2 guards at the front one, doing rounds every 30 minutes, and Dante himself in the office counting money. Connor could see his shadow through the blinds. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too predictable. In Afghanistan, when everything looked exactly as expected, that's when you knew you were walking into an ambush. Connor's phone vibrated. Rebecca Morrison. You're there, aren't you? She said without preamble. How did you? The Suburban has a tracker. Standard procedure. Listen, Connor, something's changed. Pull back. What kind of change? The kind that means Dante Powell isn't your biggest problem tonight. Get out of there, now. The urgency in her voice made Connor's instincts flare, but before he could move, his phone buzzed with another call. His home number. His blood went cold. Ruby should be asleep. The elderly neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, was watching her. She wouldn't call unless Mr. Walsh. Mrs. Kowalski's voice was trembling. I'm so sorry. I just went to check on her and she's gone. Her window's open and there's a note. Connor was already moving, running back to the Suburban. What does it say? It says, your daughter for Marcus Williams. Midnight, the pier. Come alone or she dies. Mr. Walsh. I've called the police. No. Connor forced his voice to stay level. No police. Not yet. I'll handle it. But Ruby, I'll get her back. Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone but me. Connor ended the call and immediately dialed Rebecca. They have Ruby. Silence for a moment, then, Dante doesn't take children. This isn't his style. Then who? I'm finding out. Where are you heading? The pier. It's a trap. You know that. It's Ruby. I understand. I'm mobilizing resources. Don't go in alone, Connor. That's what they want. But Connor was already driving the Suburban's engine roaring through Henderson's empty streets. The tactical part of his mind was running scenarios, calculating odds, but the father part was screaming, drowning out everything else. Ruby. They'd taken Ruby. He called Mike Chen, his only real friend in Henderson, a fellow veteran who ran a hardware store and understood things without needing explanations. Mike, I need you. Full kit, the pier, 20 minutes. Copy that. No questions. That's why Connor had called him. The pier was Henderson's attempt at waterfront renovation. Restaurants, shops, a boardwalk that attracted tourists in summer, but was deserted after dark. Connor parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot. Sig drawn, using shadows like old friends. Mike materialized beside him, kitted up like it was Kandahar all over again. Sit rep. Unknown hostiles have my daughter. Demanded a prisoner exchange. It doesn't feel right. Kids are off limits. Everyone knows that. Someone didn't get the memo. They moved together, covering angles, muscle memory taking over. The pier stretched out into the dark water, lit by sporadic street lamps that created pools of light and shadow. Perfect for an ambush. Connor's phone rang. Unknown number. You came. Good. But you didn't come alone. That's unfortunate. The voice was disguised electronic, not Dante Powell. Where is she? Safe. For now. Send your friend away and we'll talk. Connor looked at Mike, who shook his head. But this was Ruby. Mike, fall back. Overwatch position. Mike hesitated, then melted back into the shadows. Still there, but not obviously so. Good, the voice said. Now walk to the end of the pier. Slowly. Hands visible. Connor moved forward, every instinct screaming danger. The boards creaked under his feet. Wind off the water carried the smell of fish and diesel. At the end of the pier, a figure stood waiting. Not Dante Powell, but a woman. Professional bearing, tactical gear face obscured by a baseball cap. Mr. Walsh? You don't know me, but I know everything about you. Where's my daughter? Safe. Unharmed. Probably asleep. We used a mild sedative. Very professional, very careful. We're not monsters. You kidnapped an 8-year-old. We secured leverage. There's a difference. The woman stepped into better light, revealing an angular face, cold eyes. My name is Agent Sarah Mitchell, not FBI, something more specialized. We've been watching Rebecca Morrison for 3 years. When she made contact with you, we had to act. Connor's mind raced. You're using my daughter to get to Rebecca. We're using your daughter to get to you, to get to Rebecca, to get to the man she's hunting. It's all connected, Mr. Walsh. Wheels within wheels. I don't work for Rebecca. Not yet, but you were about to. We intercepted your communications, know about the meeting, the offer, Dante Powell. We know everything. Mitchell pulled out a tablet showing surveillance photos Connor at the coffee shop, at the jail, at his house. Rebecca Morrison is planning something big and she needs you for it. We need to know what. I don't know anything. But you will. Accept her offer. Work for her. And report to us. In exchange, your daughter stays safe. Marcus Williams gets a reduced sentence and you get to keep playing Father of the Year. Connor stepped closer and Mitchell's hand moved to her weapon. You think threatening my daughter will make me cooperative. I think loving your daughter will make you practical. This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Walsh. Either you help us or Ruby disappears into a system so black that even your ranger buddies won't be able to find her. The rage that Connor had kept buried for 7 years began to surface. The kind that had made Taliban fighters run rather than fight. Mitchell must have seen it because she stepped back. Careful, Mr. Walsh. I have 8 agents within rifle range. Your friend Mr. Chen is good, but not that good. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake when you let Rebecca Morrison into your life. Now you deal with the consequences. Mitchell held out a phone. This is your contact device. You report everything, every meeting, every job, every word she says. In return, Ruby stays safe. How do I know she's safe now? Mitchell made a call. A moment later, Connor's phone received a video. Ruby asleep in what looked like a hotel room, still in her pajamas, Mr. Buttons clutched in her arms. Unharmed, but definitely not home. She'll wake up in her own bed tomorrow morning thinking she had a bad dream, as long as you cooperate. Connor took the phone. Mitchell offered, his mind already working through possibilities. If I do this, I want guarantees. Written immunity for anything I do while under Rebecca's employment. Marcus Williams walks free, and nobody touches Ruby again. You're not in a position to make demands. I'm in the only position that matters. You need me to get close to Rebecca. Without me, you've got nothing but 3 years of surveillance and no results. Mitchell considered this. I'll have to run it up the chain. You do that. Meanwhile, I want my daughter back tonight. After you agree. Connor moved faster than Mitchell expected, disarming her and putting her own gun to her head before her agents could react. My daughter, now! Stand down! Mitchell shouted to her hidden agents, then quieter to Connor. This won't end well for you. Story of my life. Make the call. Mitchell slowly pulled out her phone, made a call. Release the package. Yes, now. Connor held position for 30 seconds, then stepped back, returning Mitchell's weapon. She rubbed her throat where his arm had been. You just made an enemy. Get in line. Connor's phone buzzed. Mrs. Kowalski. Mr. Walsh, Ruby just appeared in her bed. I don't understand. She was gone and now she's back and she won't wake up properly. It's okay. I'll be home in 10 minutes. She's safe. Don't call anyone. Connor turned to leave, but Mitchell's voice stopped him. This isn't over. You work for us now, whether you like it or not. I work for my daughter. Everything else is negotiable. As Connor walked back down the pier, Mike emerged from the shadows, rifle at the ready. What the hell was that about? Complicated. Thanks for the backup. Ruby okay? She will be. Mike studied his face. This is going to get worse before it gets better, isn't it? Yeah. You need help, you call. Day or night. Connor nodded, grateful for the simplicity of soldiers' loyalty. They parted ways, and Connor drove home faster than legal, needing to see Ruby with his own eyes. She was in her bed, just as Mitchell had promised, sleeping deeply, but normally. Connor checked her for injuries, found none, then sat on the edge of her bed, watching her breathe. The rage was still there, cold now patient. Someone had touched his daughter. Someone would pay for that. His phone rang. Rebecca Morrison. I heard what happened. I'm sorry, Connor. This wasn't supposed to involve Ruby. You knew they were watching you. I knew the FBI was. I didn't know about Mitchell's group. They're different. Black budget, no oversight, the kind of people who make the CIA look transparent. What have you gotten me into? Nothing you weren't already in. They would have come for you eventually just because of who you are, what you're capable of. At least now you have allies. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're all the same, using my daughter to get what you want. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. You're right. The difference is I would never have taken her. There are lines I don't cross. Mitchell's people, they don't have lines. What do you know about Judge Wellington? The question clearly surprised her. Why do you ask? Mitchell said you're hunting him, said you need me for it. I want to know why. Another long silence. Not over the phone. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'll tell you everything. But Connor, be careful. Mitchell's people are dangerous, but Wellington is worse. He has connections everywhere. Judges, senators, CIA, FBI. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable. Sarah used to say that. Connor went very still. What did you just say? Your wife, Sarah. She used to say nobody was untouchable. It's why she was investigating Wellington before she got sick. You didn't know. The room seemed to spin. Sarah was a nurse. Sarah was a nurse who noticed patterns. Cancer patients from the same neighborhood, all with connections to a chemical company Wellington had ruled in favor of despite EPA violations. She was building a case, reaching out to journalists, making noise. Then she got sick herself. Aggressive cancer, the doctors said. Bad luck, they said. Connor's hand was shaking. You're saying Wellington... I'm saying your wife was murdered, Connor. Just like my father was murdered when he tried to expose Wellington's connections to organized crime. Just like dozens of others who got too close to the truth. Connor looked at Ruby sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world was built on lies. Prove it. Tomorrow, noon. I'll bring everything I have. And Connor, whatever Mitchell told you, whatever leverage she thinks she has, we can protect Ruby better than they can. But only if you trust me. She hung up, leaving Connor in the dark with his sleeping daughter and the growing certainty that the last 7 years had been an illusion. Sarah hadn't died of random cancer. She'd been murdered for trying to do the right thing, and he'd been hiding in this small town fixing pipes while her killer walked free. Ruby stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about dinosaurs. Connor smoothed her hair, his decision crystallizing. Mitchell wanted him to spy on Rebecca. Rebecca wanted him to help bring down Wellington. Everyone wanted to use him. But Connor had his own agenda now. Find out who killed Sarah. Protect Ruby. And make everyone who'd threatened his family understand why that had been a fatal mistake. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of Sarah from 3 years ago, thinner than he remembered, outside what looked like a courthouse. She was holding files, looking determined despite the chemo ravaging her body. The caption read, "She was brave until the end. Be brave too. RM." Connor deleted the text and stood up. He had preparations to make. If he was going to play all sides, Mitchell's group, Rebecca Morrison, possibly Dante Powell, if the gangster was still relevant, he needed resources, intelligence, weapons, allies. He went to the basement and opened a hidden panel he'd installed years ago. Inside were things he'd kept from his ranger days, not just weapons, but contacts. Phone numbers memorized and never written down. People who owed him favors. People who understood that some fights couldn't be won by following rules. Connor started making calls. It was past midnight, but the people he was calling didn't keep regular hours. Thompson, it's Walsh. Yeah, I know it's been years. I need a full workup on a Judge James Wellington. Everything dirty. I know it'll cost. Name your price. Martinez, it's Connor. That thing in Kabul you said you owed me for, I'm collecting. Federal agent named Sarah Mitchell runs some black budget group. Find out everything. Jackie Connor Walsh. Yeah, the ghost is back. I need clean weapons untraceable. The full package. Tomorrow night. By the time he was done, Connor had activated a network that had been dormant for 7 years. People who worked in shadows who understood that sometimes justice and law were different things. Ruby appeared at the top of the basement stairs, rubbing her eyes. Dad? I had the weirdest dream. There were people in my room and then I was floating and then I was back in bed. Connor climbed the stairs and picked her up. Just a dream, sweetheart. Let's get you back to bed. Why are you dressed? Were you going somewhere? Just checking on things. Making sure everything's safe. Ruby looked at him with those two wise eyes. It wasn't really a dream, was it? Connor hesitated, then decided on honesty, or at least partial honesty. Some bad people were playing games tonight, but it's over now. You're safe. Because you stopped them. Because they know better than to try again. Ruby nodded, accepting this with the faith children have in their parents' ability to make the world right. Dad, are we going to have to move again? What makes you think we moved before? Sometimes you look at our house like you're surprised to be here, like you're remembering somewhere else. Connor carried her back to her room. No, sweetheart, we're not moving. This is our home, and I'm going to make sure it stays safe. By being a soldier again. By being whatever I need to be. Ruby settled back into bed, but her eyes stayed on him. Mom would understand, you know. If you had to be a soldier to keep me safe, she'd understand. Connor's throat tightened. How do you know that? She told me. When she was sick. She said Daddy was a hero who pretended to be normal, but someday he might have to be a hero again, and that it would be okay. Connor kissed her forehead, unable to speak. Dad, Ruby's voice was getting sleepy again. The people who took me tonight, are they the same people who made Mom sick? Children saw everything understood more than adults realized. Connor chose his words carefully. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. And if they are, then they'll learn why that was a mistake. Ruby smiled slightly, already drifting back to sleep. Good. Mom would want that too. Connor sat with her until her breathing deepened, then went to his own room. The photo of Sarah on his nightstand seemed different now, not just a memorial to lost love, but evidence of a crime he'd been too blind to see. His phone buzzed, Mitchell's device, the one she'd given him to report on Rebecca. First check in, the text read, confirm receipt. Connor typed back, confirmed. Meeting Morrison tomorrow noon, we'll report after. Good. Remember what's at stake. Connor set the phone aside and picked up his personal one. He scrolled through photos until he found one from Sarah's last good day before the final decline. She was in the garden, smiling despite the pain planting flowers she'd never see bloom. But in the background, barely visible, was a car, a black sedan with government plates. He'd never noticed it before, never had reason to look. But now, Connor zoomed in on the photo. The license plate was partially visible. He wrote it down, another piece of a puzzle that was finally taking shape. Someone had been watching Sarah, watching them, even then. The question was, had they been watching to protect or to ensure she never revealed what she'd discovered? Connor went to the window, looking out at the quiet street. Two sedans now, one FBI, one probably Mitchell's team, both thinking they owned him. They were about to learn otherwise. His phone rang. Mike Chen. Brother, you need to see the news. Connor turned on the TV. Breaking news banner. Federal Judge James Wellington announces Senate run promises to restore law and order. The man on screen was distinguished, silver-haired, radiating authority and trustworthiness. The kind of face juries believed voters trusted and nobody suspected could order murders. Connor, you there? Yeah, just processing. This connected to tonight. Everything's connected. You need backup, you call. Whatever this is, you don't have to face it alone. Connor appreciated the loyalty, but this was beyond what friendship could fix. Thanks, Mike. But this one's personal. After hanging up, Connor made one more call, a number he'd sworn he'd never use. Well, well, the voice on the other end drawled. Connor Walsh. Thought you were dead. Not yet, Colonel, but I need a favor. After 7 years of radio silence, must be serious. It is. Judge James Wellington. I need everything, and I mean everything. Wellington Christ Connor, why not just paint a target on your forehead? Maybe I already have. The colonel was quiet for a moment. This about Sarah? You knew? I suspected. Few others did too, but Wellington's connected enough to make suspicions disappear. You sure you want to open this door? It's already open. Question is whether I walk through it or get dragged. All right, give me 48 hours. But Connor, if you're going after Wellington, you better be ready for war, real war, the kind where there are no rules and everybody's expendable. I've fought that war before. No, you haven't. Afghanistan had rules even if the enemy didn't follow them. This is different. This is fighting people who write the rules, enforce them on everyone else, and exempt themselves. You can't win that kind of war with just bullets and bravery. Then how do you win? You become worse than them. You willing to do that? For Ruby. Connor looked at his daughter's door. Thought about someone putting their hands on her tonight. Thought about Sarah dying in pain while her killer planned his next move. Yes. Then God help us all. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Connor stood in his dark house surrounded by the illusion of suburban normalcy and accepted what he'd been denying for 7 years. He wasn't a plumber. He wasn't a single dad trying to make ends meet. He was a weapon that had been sleeping, and now it was time to wake up. Tomorrow, he'd meet with Rebecca Morrison and learn the truth about Sarah's death. He'd report to Mitchell and play the cooperative asset. He'd check on Marcus and make sure the kid understood how lucky he was to be alive. But tonight he'd stand watch over his daughter and plan how to destroy everyone who'd made the fatal error of threatening his family. The plumber was dead. The soldier was back. And this time he wasn't fighting by anyone's rules but his own. The abandoned warehouse on Henderson's outskirts didn't look like much from the outside rusted metal siding, broken windows, weeds growing through cracks in the concrete. But Connor recognized the signs of a professional operation, the subtle cameras, the reinforced doors disguised as rust, the way the seeming decay was carefully curated to discourage visitors. Rebecca Morrison stood in the center of the main floor, surrounded by boxes of documents, computer screens, and what looked like years of obsessive investigation mapped out on bulletin boards. She'd traded her suburban mom costume for tactical pants and a black sweater looking more like the dangerous woman Agent Mitchell had described. "Welcome to my real office," she said as Connor entered. "Not as cozy as neutral ground, but it serves its purpose." Connor scanned the space, noting exits, defensive positions, the two men trying to look casual near the back door. "You have security. Former colleagues. People who understand that justice and law aren't always the same thing." She gestured to a table where files were spread out. "Before we begin, I need to know, are you recording this?" Connor pulled out Mitchell's phone. His own phone removed the batteries from both and set them on a metal shelf. Satisfied. "It's a start." Rebecca walked to the table, her slight limp more pronounced now that she wasn't trying to hide it. Sarah's investigation began 3 years before she got sick. She was working in the cancer ward, seeing patterns others missed or ignored. She opened a file revealing medical records, charts, newspaper clippings. 17 cancer patients over 2 years, all from the Riverside neighborhood. All under 40, all aggressive cases, all dead within 18 months of diagnosis. "Cancer clusters happen," Connor said, though his jaw was tight. "They do, but not like this." Rebecca pulled out a map, red dots marking locations. Every victim lived within a half-mile radius of Brennan Chemical, the company that had been dumping toxins illegally for a decade. The company that Judge Wellington ruled in favor of when the EPA tried to shut them down. Connor studied the map. Sarah had made those dots. Her handwriting labeled the margins with notes, questions, connections. "She never told me she was investigating this." "She was protecting you, and Ruby. She knew how dangerous Wellington was." Rebecca opened another file. "This is Thomas Morrison, my father. No relation despite the shared last name I adopted. He was a forensic accountant who discovered Wellington was taking bribes from Brennan Chemical. Payments routed through shell companies, hidden in campaign contributions, washed through his wife's consulting firm." The photo showed a middle-aged man with kind eyes and Rebecca's sharp features. Wellington had him framed for embezzlement. Dad was arrested, convicted in Wellington's own courtroom conflict of interest that somehow no one noticed. He died in prison 3 months later, stabbed by an inmate who got early release the next week. "And Sarah?" Rebecca pulled out a medical file. "Your wife's cancer was specifically adenocarcinoma with unusual markers, the same type that affected 9 of the 17 victims. But Sarah's case was different. It appeared suddenly aggressively after she'd been healthy just weeks before. That's not how that cancer typically works. You're saying she was poisoned." "I'm saying someone with access to Brennan Chemical's waste products could have introduced carcinogens into her system. Someone who wanted her investigation to stop." Rebecca met his eyes. The day before Sarah was diagnosed, she'd made an appointment with a federal prosecutor. She never made that meeting. Connor's hands clenched. The memory of Sarah's sudden illness, the shock of the diagnosis, the rapid deterioration it all took on a different, darker meaning. Who else knows about this? A few. Most are dead or too scared to talk. Wellington doesn't just destroy his enemies, he destroys their families, their reputations, their legacies, makes examples of them. Then why are you still alive? Rebecca smiled coldly. Because I became someone else. Rebecca Morrison doesn't exist in any system that matters. I'm a ghost with resources, skills, and nothing left to lose. I've spent 7 years planning Wellington's destruction, but I needed someone like you, someone with the skills and the motivation to see it through. You knew about Sarah when you approached me. I knew she was investigating Wellington. I didn't know she was murdered until I dug deeper after our first meeting. Your appearance in Henderson, the grocery store incident, it seemed like providence. Or maybe Sarah's way of pushing us together. Connor walked to the bulletin board, seeing the web of connections Rebecca had mapped. Wellington sat at the center like a spider threads connecting him to judges, politicians, business leaders, criminals. How many people has he killed? Directly. Maybe a dozen. Indirectly through his rulings and corruption. Hundreds. Possibly thousands. If you count the cancer victims from Brennan Chemical alone. And Mitchell's people know this. They know some of it. But Wellington has connections in every agency. Files disappear, witnesses recant, or vanish, investigations get shut down. Mitchell's group isn't trying to stop him, they're trying to control him, use him as an asset. Connor turned to face her. So, what's your plan? You can't just kill him. He's about to run for Senate, too high profile. Kill him. No, that would make him a martyr. His allies would spin it as an attack on justice itself. Rebecca pulled out a leather-bound ledger. This is Wellington's real accounting. Every bribe, every murder, every crime documented in his own hand. He's arrogant enough to keep records hidden in a safe in his home office. You've seen it. Photos taken by someone who died 2 days later in a car accident, but I know where it is, how to get to it. What I didn't have was someone skilled enough to retrieve it while making it look like Wellington's enemies in organized crime were responsible. Frame job. Justice. Wellington's been taking money from the Torino crime family for years, but lately he's been favoring their rivals. The Torinos are angry, looking for leverage. If that ledger surfaces in their hands, if copies get sent to every major news outlet, to the FBI, to congressional oversight committees, Wellington goes down and it looks like criminal infighting. Exactly. No martyrdom, no conspiracy theories. Just a corrupt judge finally facing justice. Connor considered the plan. It was elegant, comprehensive, and incredibly dangerous. When what? Tomorrow night. Wellington's hosting a fundraiser at his estate. 500 guests, security focused on the perimeter, everyone distracted by politics and champagne. You've been invited. Rebecca Morrison hasn't, but Charlotte Harrison has. She pulled out an ID, her photo, but different hair, different name. Philanthropist, major donor, the kind of person Wellington cultivates. You'll be my security consultant. Background's already established, references check out. And if something goes wrong, then we implement Plan B, which is, we burn it all down and run. I have exit strategies for both of us. New identities, clean papers, enough money to start over anywhere. Ruby would come with you, of course. Connor shook his head. I'm not running, not anymore. Even if staying means Ruby loses her father. Staying means Ruby learns that some fights are worth the risk. That her mother's death meant something, that justice isn't just a word. Rebecca studied him for a long moment. You're different from 7 years ago. Harder. 7 years ago, I thought playing by the rules kept people safe. Now I know better. His phone, the regular one, buzzed from the shelf. Connor reinserted the battery and checked it. Text from Mike. Cops at your house. Ruby's fine at school, but something's up. I have to go, Connor said. The FBI. Local cops, probably about Marcus. Rebecca handed him a card. My real number. Memorize it and destroy the card. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., I'll pick you up. Wear a suit. I don't own a suit. You do now. She indicated a garment bag hanging nearby. Tailored based on your military records. Should fit perfectly. Connor took the bag, then paused. Why Charlotte Harrison? Charlotte was my father's mother's name. Harrison was his middle name. It's who I would have been if Wellington hadn't destroyed my family. She turned back to her boards. Tomorrow night I become her for real, and Wellington meets his reckoning. Connor left the warehouse and drove toward home, but stopped 3 blocks away when he saw the police cars. He parked and approached on foot, using the neighbors' yards to get close enough to hear. Detective Ray Morgan, one of the few cops Connor genuinely respected, was talking to Mrs. Kowalski on Connor's porch. Just need to ask him some questions about last night. Nothing serious. I told you he left to handle an emergency plumbing call. Some pipe burst at the Hendersons' rental property. Good woman, Connor thought, covering for him without being asked. Do you know what time he'll be back? Morgan asked. He said he had to order parts. Could be this afternoon. Connor backed away and circled to his truck, then drove to the police station openly. Better to face this head on than let them keep searching. Morgan looked surprised when Connor walked into the detective division. "Connor, we were just at your house." "I know. Saw the cars. What's this about Marcus Williams? He's asking for you. Says you're the only one he'll talk to." "About what?" "About who really sent him to that grocery store. He says it wasn't Dante Powell." Connor kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. If it wasn't Dante, then who and why? They led him to an interrogation room where Marcus sat looking younger than ever in his orange jumpsuit. His lawyer, Susan Chen, sat beside him. "Mr. Walsh," Marcus said, relief visible on his face. "Thank you for coming." Connor sat down. "What's going on, Marcus?" "It wasn't Dante who sent me. I lied before because I was scared, but after what you did coming to see me, I can't." He stopped, swallowed. "It was a woman. Professional cold. She said she'd kill Jasmine if I didn't rob the store at exactly that time." Connor felt the pieces clicking together. "Describe her." "White, maybe 35, dark hair pulled back. Had this way of standing like she was military or something. And her eyes dead, you know. Like she'd killed before and wouldn't think twice about doing it again." "Agent Mitchell. She'd orchestrated the robbery to force contact between Connor and Rebecca. Why that specific store, that specific time? She knew you'd be there. Said you were the only one who could stop me without violence. Said it was a test." Connor looked at Morgan. "I want to make a call." Outside the interrogation room, Connor dialed Mitchell's number. She answered on the first ring. "Figured it out, did you?" "You set up a kid to force me into a situation where Rebecca would notice me. We needed her to make contact. Your heroics were just a bonus, made her more interested. You traumatized an innocent family. I protected national security. That's what I do, Mr. Walsh, whatever it takes. And Ruby was taking her part of the plan too. That was an acceleration of timeline. Wellington announcing his Senate run changed things. We need Rebecca's plan to happen now before he becomes too powerful to touch." Connor processed this. "You want Wellington taken down too. I want Wellington controlled or eliminated. He's become a liability, too ambitious, too reckless, but he has dirt on half of Washington. We can't move against him directly." "So you're using Rebecca to do your dirty work?" "I'm using both of you. The difference is she doesn't know it yet." Mitchell paused. "The ledger she's after. We need it too, but not for exposure, for leverage. Wellington's records implicate people we need to control. And if I don't deliver it to you, then Ruby has an accident. Tragic, unexpected, the kind that happens to children every day. You'll never prove we were involved." Connor's grip tightened on the phone. "You're making a mistake." "No, Mr. Walsh. You made the mistake when you thought you could just be a plumber. Men like you don't get to retire. Your weapons get used until they break." She hung up. Connor stood in the hallway calculating. Mitchell wanted the ledger. Rebecca wanted it exposed. Wellington wanted it hidden. Everyone had leverage, everyone had plans, and Ruby was caught in the middle, unless he changed the game. He went back into the interrogation room. "Marcus, I'm going to help you, but I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded eagerly. "Tell them everything about the woman who threatened you. Don't mention my name beyond the grocery store incident. Your sister is safe. I'll make sure of that. But you need to seem cooperative without actually knowing anything useful. Can you do that?" "Yes, but why are you helping me?" "Because you're collateral damage in someone else's war, and I don't leave innocent people behind." Connor looked at Susan Chen. "Get him a deal. Coercion diminished responsibility. He was a victim too." Outside the station, Connor called Mike. "I need a favor. A big one." "Name it." "Tomorrow night, I need you to watch Ruby, but not at my house. Take her somewhere safe, somewhere nobody would think to look." "The cabin." Mike's hunting cabin, 60 miles into the mountains, off the grid, defensible, stocked with supplies. "Perfect." "How long?" 48 hours, maybe 72, if something happens to me." "I'll raise her like my own. You know that." Connor's throat tightened. "Thanks, brother. You want to tell me what's really going on?" "The less you know, the safer you are. Just keep her safe." "Roger that." Connor drove to Ruby's school, arriving just as classes let out. She ran to him, backpack bouncing, face bright with 8-year-old energy. "Dad, guess what? I got an A on my spelling test." "That's great, sweetheart." He hugged her tighter than usual. "Hey, how would you like to go camping with Uncle Mike for a few days?" Her face lit up. "Really? Can we make s'mores? All the s'mores you want." As they drove home to pack, Ruby chattered about school, about her friends, about everything except last night. But Connor caught her watching him in the mirror, those green eyes holding questions she wasn't asking. "Dad, is this camping trip because of the bad people?" Connor chose honesty. "Partly. Uncle Mike will keep you safe while I fix some things. Fix things like a plumber, or fix things like a soldier." "Both, maybe." Ruby was quiet for a moment. "Mom would want you to be careful." "I know. But she'd also want you to stop the bad people." "How do you know that?" Ruby pulled out a piece of paper from her backpack. It was one of Sarah's journals, a page Ruby had apparently saved. Sarah's handwriting filled the page. "Evil thrives when good people do nothing. Connor thinks he protects us by being normal, by hiding what he is. But someday the world will need the man I married, the warrior, with a conscience, the protector who stands between the innocent and the darkness. When that day comes, I hope he remembers that fighting for justice isn't the opposite of being a good father. It's the ultimate expression of it." Connor had to pull over, his vision blurred with tears he wouldn't let fall. "She knew, didn't she?" Ruby said softly. "She knew you'd have to be a soldier again." "Yeah, baby, she knew." "Then it's okay. Do what you have to do. I'll be safe with Uncle Mike." That evening, after Ruby was packed and delivered to Mike's capable hands, Connor stood in his empty house preparing for war. The suit Rebecca had provided fit perfectly expensive fabric tailored to conceal weapons, looking like something a high-end security consultant would wear. He loaded the SIG, strapped a knife to his ankle, and placed the various phones his Mitchell's a burner in different pockets. Each one connected to a different faction in this war, each one a liability and an asset. The colonel's information had come through pages of data on Wellington, his connections, his crimes. Most of it confirmed what Rebecca had shown him, but there were additional details. Wellington's wife had left him 6 months ago, was in hiding. His son had died of an overdose, supposedly suicide but suspicious circumstances. The man had destroyed his own family along with everyone else's. Connor's regular phone buzzed. "Rebecca, car arriving in 5 minutes." He looked around the house one last time. Photos of Sarah, of Ruby, of the life they'd built on lies and half-truths. After tomorrow, everything would change. Either Wellington would fall or Connor would. Either way, the plumber's simple life was over. A black town car pulled up outside. Connor locked his door and walked toward his fate. Sarah's words echoing in his mind, the warrior with a conscience. He got in the car. Rebecca was already inside, transformed into Charlotte Harrison, elegant dress, perfect makeup, every inch the philanthropist. But underneath, Connor could see the weapons, the tension, the years of planning coming to fruition. "You ready for this?" she asked. "I've been ready for 7 years. I just didn't know it." As they drove toward Wellington's estate, Connor thought about Ruby safe in the mountains, about Sarah dead in the ground, about Marcus in his cell, about all the innocents caught in the crossfire of powerful men's games. Tonight that would change. Tonight the ledger would be found. Tonight justice would begin. The car approached Wellington's estate, a mansion lit up like a beacon full of people celebrating a monster's ambition. Guards at the gate checking invitations, but they'd never see the real threat coming. Because the real threat wasn't the ghost seeking revenge or the soldier seeking justice. The real threat was the father who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose but his daughter, and that made Connor Walsh the most dangerous man at the party. "Remember," Rebecca said as they approached the gate, "we're just here for the ledger. In and out, no confrontation." Connor nodded, but his hand rested on the SIG beneath his jacket. Plans were good, but plans rarely survived contact with the enemy. And tonight there were enemies everywhere. Wellington Mitchell's people, possibly the Torinos, and God knew who else. The guard checked their invitations, waved them through. The car rolled up the circular drive toward the house where Sarah's killer was holding court, accepting congratulations on his Senate run, never knowing that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Connor helped Rebecca out of the car, playing the role of security consultant scanning for threats that were very real. As they walked toward the entrance, she whispered, "Whatever happens, get the ledger, even if you have to leave me behind." "Nobody gets left behind," Connor replied. "Not anymore." They entered the lion's den, two ghosts seeking justice in a world that had forgotten what the word meant. But tonight they would remind everyone. Tonight Wellington would learn what Sarah had known all along, that nobody was untouchable. The party swirled around them, powerful people making deals, trading favors, never noticing the danger walking among them. Connor marked exits, counted security, noted which guests were armed. The habits of a lifetime impossible to suppress. And somewhere in this house, hidden in a safe, was a ledger that would bring it all crashing down. Time to go to work. The ballroom gleamed with the kind of wealth that never questioned its origins. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors while a string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Connor moved through the crowd like a shark, through schools of oblivious fish, Rebecca on his arm. Both of them wearing their lies like designer clothes. Judge James Wellington stood near the grand staircase, surrounded by admirers and sycophants. Silver-haired, distinguished, radiating the kind of authority that made people trust him instinctively. Connor studied him with the patience of a sniper, cataloging details, the slight favor of his left knee, from an old tennis injury, the way his eyes never stopped moving despite his smile, the two bodyguards trying to look casual at 3 and 9 o'clock. "Charlotte Harrison," Rebecca said smoothly as they approached, her voice carrying just enough Boston Brahmin to be believable. "Such an honor to finally meet you, Judge Wellington." Wellington's eyes assessed her with the calculation of a man who measured everyone's value instantly. "Miss Harrison, your donation was extremely generous. I'm glad you could attend." "I believe in investing in leadership with vision," Rebecca replied, and Connor marveled at how easily she wore this skin, this life that should have been hers. "This is my security consultant, Mr. Thomas. After that dreadful business in Boston last month, I don't go anywhere without protection." Wellington barely glanced at Connor, dismissing him as hired help. Perfect. The invisible man saw everything while being seen by no one. "I understand completely," Wellington said. "Security is paramount in these troubled times. In fact, it's going to be a cornerstone of my campaign, making our streets safe again, ensuring justice prevails." Connor bit back bile at hearing this murderer speak of justice. Sarah's face flashed in his mind, pale and thin in those final days, still trying to protect him from the truth she'd uncovered. "I'd love to hear more about your plans," Rebecca said, touching Wellington's arm lightly. "Perhaps somewhere quieter." "The crowd is a bit overwhelming." Wellington's smile shifted, becoming predatory. He thought he was being propositioned. "My study is just upstairs. We could discuss my platform in private." "That sounds perfect." As they moved toward the stairs, Connor caught movement in his peripheral vision. A woman in catering uniform, but her stance was wrong, her eyes too alert. Mitchell's people. They were here watching, waiting for Connor to deliver the ledger. Wellington's study was exactly what Connor expected: dark wood leather-bound books that had never been read, photos with powerful people, and behind the desk, a painting that was slightly askew. The safe. "Brandy," Wellington offered, moving to a crystal decanter. "Please." Rebecca accepted while Connor positioned himself by the door, playing the bodyguard role while actually checking for additional security measures. 2 cameras, one obvious one hidden. Motion sensor in the corner, the window wired for alarms. Wellington handed Rebecca a glass, keeping one for himself. "So, Ms. Harrison, what specifically interests you about my campaign?" "Justice," Rebecca said simply. "I've seen too many criminals escape consequences, too many good people destroyed by a system that protects the wrong people." "I couldn't agree more." Wellington sat behind his desk, the painting with the hidden safe directly behind him. "I've spent 20 years fighting that fight." Connor watched Rebecca's hand tighten on her glass. 20 years of destroying lives, he meant. 20 years of murder disguised as justice. "Tell me," Rebecca continued, "do you ever worry about revenge from those you've convicted?" Wellington laughed. "The guilty always claim innocence, but I sleep soundly knowing I've done what's right. Besides," he gestured to the room, "security is comprehensive. This house is a fortress." A knock at the door interrupted them. One of Wellington's bodyguards entered. "Sir, the senator is asking for you, says it's urgent." Wellington sighed. Politics never rests. Ms. Harrison, would you excuse me for just a moment? Please enjoy your brandy. I'll return shortly. After he left, Connor moved immediately. 2 minutes, maybe 3. Rebecca was already at the painting, swinging it aside to reveal the safe. Biometric lock. We need his fingerprints. Connor pulled out a device the colonel had provided military grade, able to bypass most biometric systems, but it needed a template. He looked at Wellington's glass on the desk, perfect prints on the crystal. 40 seconds, Rebecca said, as Connor worked lifting the prints with tape, transferring them to the scanner. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of cash, some bonds, and there a leather-bound ledger worn from years of use. Rebecca grabbed it, flipping through quickly. This is it. Names, dates, amounts, everything. We need to go. But as they moved toward the door, it opened. Not Wellington Agent Mitchell, dressed as a caterer, but holding a Glock steady. I'll take that, she said. Connor stepped between her and Rebecca. This wasn't the deal. The deal was you get me the ledger, you have it, hand it over, and let Wellington walk free. Wellington's finished either way, but this ledger is too valuable to waste on simple exposure. The people in here, senators, CIA directors, federal judges, we can control them all with this. More corruption? Rebecca said with disgust. Just changing who holds the leash. Welcome to the real world, Mitchell replied. Now give me the... The door burst open. Wellington stood there, his bodyguards behind him taking in the scene, the open safe, the ledger in Rebecca's hands. Mitchell with her weapon drawn. Charlotte Harrison, Wellington said slowly. No, you're Rebecca Morrison, or should I say Charlotte Morrison, daughter of Thomas Morrison. His smile was cold. I wondered when you'd finally make your move. Everything happened at once. Mitchell swung her weapon toward Wellington. His bodyguards drew their guns. Connor moved years of training compressing into instinct. He knocked Mitchell's arm up as she fired the bullet, punching into the ceiling. His elbow caught the first bodyguard in the throat, while his other hand drew the SIG, putting 2 rounds center mass into the second guard. Rebecca didn't hesitate. She threw the brandy in Wellington's face and dove behind the desk as more guards flooded the room. Connor flipped the heavy oak desk for cover as bullets started flying. So much for in and out quietly, he muttered, returning fire. Mitchell had taken cover behind a bookshelf, shooting at both them and Wellington's people. The ledger. Get me that ledger. Wellington was screaming orders, calling for more security, but also reaching for something in his jacket, a small pistol pearl-handled, probably never fired in anger. Connor counted muzzle flashes. 4 hostiles in the room, more in the hallway. Mitchell pinned down but still dangerous. Rebecca beside him, the ledger clutched to her chest, her elegant dress now torn and blood-stained. We need an exit, she said. Connor looked at the window. 3rd floor, but there was a balcony below 2nd floor. Can you jump? Do I have a choice? He provided covering fire while Rebecca shot out the window with a lamp base. Cold air rushed in along with the sound of sirens. Someone had called 911. Go! Connor shouted. Rebecca jumped, landing hard on the balcony below. Connor heard her grunt of pain, but she kept moving. He turned to follow, but Wellington was there, that pearl-handled pistol aimed at his face. You killed my wife, Connor said. Wellington's eyes widened slightly. Walsh. You're Connor Walsh, Sarah's husband. You poisoned her, made it look like cancer. She was interfering with things beyond her understanding, just like her husband is now. Wellington's finger tightened on the trigger. Connor moved faster. A lifetime of violence condensed into a moment. His hand swept Wellington's gun aside as it fired the bullet singing past his ear. His other hand, still holding the SIG, came up. But he didn't shoot Wellington in the head or the heart. He shot him in the knee, the exact spot where the old injury was. Wellington screamed, dropping, and Connor stood over him. That's for Sarah, he said. Prison is for everyone else. Mitchell appeared in the doorway. Walsh the ledger. Already gone, Connor said, backing toward the window. Your move, Mitchell. Save Wellington or chase us. Can't do both. He jumped. The landing rattled his bones, sent fire through his bad shoulder, but he rolled with it, came up running. Rebecca was already at the edge of the second balcony, looking down at the gardens below. There. She pointed at a service van parked near the kitchen entrance. Behind them, gunfire erupted as Mitchell engaged Wellington's remaining security. They jumped again, bushes breaking their fall thorns, tearing clothes and skin. Connor pulled Rebecca up, and they ran, sirens getting closer, the entire estate now in chaos. The van was locked, but Connor shot the lock off, hot-wired it in seconds, another skill from another life. They tore out of the estate as police cars screamed past them, going the other direction. "The ledger," Connor said as he drove. "Where?" Rebecca pulled it from inside her dress where she'd secured it. "Right here." "But Mitchell." "Mitchell just got caught in a firefight at a judge's estate. She's got bigger problems now." They ditched the van 6 blocks away, switching to a car Rebecca had pre-positioned. Always have an exit strategy. As they drove toward the warehouse, Rebecca made calls, setting things in motion. Copies to the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, Fox. Everyone, FBI, DOJ, congressional oversight. It's going wide in 1 hour. Wellington will claim it's fake. Not with his blood on it, not with his fingerprints on every page, and not with the recordings I've been making for 3 years of his conversations admitting to parts of it. Connor looked at her. "You've been recording him." "I've been recording everyone." "Insurance." She pulled out a phone, hit play. Wellington's voice filled the car. Thomas Morrison was becoming a problem. Sometimes problems need permanent solutions. That's admission of conspiracy to commit murder, among other things. They reached the warehouse. Rebecca's people were already packing up, destroying what couldn't be moved. She moved to her computers, uploading files, sending the final salvos of her 7-year war. Connor's phone rang. "Mitchell." "You played me," she said without preamble. "You played yourself. You thought you could control everyone, threaten my daughter, manipulate kids like Marcus. You're no better than Wellington." "Wellington's in surgery. He's claiming you and Morrison tried to assassinate him." "Good thing there's a ledger full of evidence saying otherwise." "That ledger was supposed to be mine." "Sue me." Mitchell's voice went cold. "This isn't over, Walsh. You've made an enemy of people you can't even imagine. Take a number." He hung up and immediately called Mike. "How's Ruby?" "Safe. Making s'mores and telling ghost stories. Kid's tougher than most rangers I knew. Keep her there another day. Things are about to get crazy." "Already is." News is breaking everywhere. Judge Wellington accused of massive corruption. FBI, CIA, dozens of officials implicated. "You did this. We did this." "Sarah would be proud." Connor's throat tightened. "Yeah, she would." The warehouse doors burst open. Not police, the Torino crime family, here for their piece of Wellington. The lead man, Vincent Torino himself, walked in, flanked by 6 soldiers. "Ms. Morrison," Vincent said smoothly, "I hear you have something that belongs to us." "The ledger's already public," Rebecca said, "but I saved something special for you." She handed him a folder. Vincent opened it, smiled. "Wellington's offshore accounts. How generous." "He stole from you. Seemed only fair you get it back." "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing. We're done here. Wellington's finished, and we all get to watch him fall." Vincent studied them for a moment, then nodded. "The Torinos remember their friends Ms. Morrison, and their enemies." "Which are you?" "Neither. I'm a ghost, and ghosts don't take sides." Vincent laughed. "I like you, both of you. If you ever need anything." He left the offer hanging and walked out with his men. Connor and Rebecca stood in the empty warehouse, the weight of what they'd done settling over them. "What now?" Connor asked. "Now we disappear. I have a plane waiting, new identities prepared. You and Ruby can start fresh anywhere." "What about you?" Rebecca looked at her boards one last time, then started pulling them down. "Charlotte Harrison dies tonight. Rebecca Morrison never existed. Tomorrow I'll be someone else entirely." That's not an answer. She turned to him, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked vulnerable. "I've spent 7 years focused on revenge. I don't know how to do anything else." Connor understood that emptiness the void left when purpose disappeared. "You could try living. Actually living, not just existing for someone else's destruction. Is that what you're going to do?" "I'm going to raise my daughter, teach her to be strong and good and brave like her mother. Maybe fix some pipes. Maybe help kids like Marcus who get caught in bad situations. Use these skills for something better than violence." "Sounds nice. Sounds normal." You could try normal too. Rebecca laughed, but it was sad. I don't even know what normal looks like. Connor's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but he recognized the style, the colonel. It's done. Wellington arrested. Federal charges filed. He'll die in prison. Rebecca sank into a chair, 7 years of tension finally releasing. It's really over. The revenge is over. Life is just beginning. She looked up at him. Connor Walsh, are you actually suggesting I might have a future beyond this? I'm suggesting everyone deserves a second chance, even ghosts. Before she could respond, Connor's phone rang. Ruby. Dad? Uncle Mike let me watch the news. They said a bad judge got arrested. Was that the one who hurt Mom? Yes, sweetheart. Are you okay? I'm okay. I'll come get you tomorrow. Dad is the pretty lady from the grocery store with you, Rebecca. Connor looked at Rebecca, who was pretending not to listen. How did you know? I told you I notice everything. Is she okay too? Yeah, she's okay. Good. Maybe she can come to dinner sometime, when she's done being sad. Kids saw everything. Maybe. Get some sleep, baby. Love you, Dad. Love you too. He hung up to find Rebecca watching him with an unreadable expression. Dinner, she said. She likes you. Said you were sad but trying not to be. 8-year-olds shouldn't be that perceptive. 8-year-olds who've lost parents see the world differently. Rebecca stood, began gathering the few things she was taking. I should go. The plane will wait. Connor stepped closer. You don't have to run anymore. Wellington's done. Mitchell's compromised. The Torinos are satisfied. You could stay. Stay and do what I'm not a small-town kind of person. Neither was I, but it grows on you. Connor, she paused, searching for words. I used you, manipulated the situation to get you involved. Your wife. You didn't kill Sarah. You just showed me who did, and now he's facing justice. That's all I wanted. Is justice enough? Connor thought about it. No, but it's a start. Sarah's gone, nothing changes that. But Ruby's alive and she needs a future worth living in. Maybe that's enough purpose for now. Rebecca smiled, small but genuine. You're a good man, Connor Walsh. Your daughter's lucky. She could use strong women in her life, too. Role models who know how to fight but choose when not to. Are you actually asking me to stay in Henderson? Get a normal job? Pretend to be a regular person? I'm saying everyone deserves a second chance, even people like us. Rebecca looked around the empty warehouse at the remnants of her 7-year obsession. Then she looked at Connor standing there in his ruined suit, blood on his shirt, offering something she hadn't dared imagine a future. I don't even have a real name anymore, she said softly. Then pick one. Be whoever you want to be. It's that simple. Nothing's simple, but it's possible. Her phone buzzed, the pilot wondering about departure. She looked at it for a long moment, then typed something and put it away. I told him to file a flight plan for tomorrow instead, just in case. Connor smiled. Ruby will be happy. She's been asking for someone to help with her science project. Something about butterflies. Butterflies? Rebecca laughed, and it sounded like years of weightlifting. I studied entomology in college, before everything went wrong. See, already useful. They stood there in the empty warehouse, two broken people considering the possibility of becoming whole. Outside, sirens wailed as Wellington's empire crumbled. The news would dominate headlines for weeks. Lives would be destroyed and rebuilt. Justice, imperfect but real, would be served. But inside there was quiet. Peace, even. The kind that comes after a long war finally ends. I'll need a place to stay, Rebecca said. If I'm trying this normal thing. There's an apartment complex near Ruby's school. The landlord owes me a favor. I fixed his pipes for free when his kid was sick. Of course you did, she shook her head. Connor Walsh, plumber and protector. Just a dad trying to raise his daughter right. And what am I in this scenario? Connor considered. A friend. Someone who understands that the past shapes us but doesn't have to define us. Someone starting over. Charlotte, she said suddenly. What? My name. If I'm starting over, I want to be Charlotte, not Morrison, not Harrison, Charlotte Adams. New name for a new life. Charlotte Adams. Connor tested the name. Sounds like someone who could teach kids about butterflies. Or help a single dad remember there's life beyond survival. They left the warehouse together, driving through Henderson's quiet streets toward uncertain futures. The radio was full of breaking news about Wellington, about corruption exposed, about justice served, but Connor turned it off. That was the past now. I should warn you, he said as they drove, small-town life is really boring, like seriously boring. PTA meetings, bake sales, little league games. Sounds terrifying, Charlotte replied, but she was smiling. Do I have to learn to bake? Ruby would love that. Fair warning, she's obsessed with dinosaur-shaped everything. Dinosaurs I can handle. It's the normal human interaction I'm worried about. They pulled up to Connor's house. The lights were off. Ruby safe in the mountains with Mike, but tomorrow she'd be home. Tomorrow, life would begin again. Thank you, Charlotte said quietly, for offering this chance. Thank you for showing me the truth. About Sarah, about Wellington, about everything. What do we do now? Connor looked at his small, ordinary house, thought about his daughter, about the future stretching ahead full of possibility instead of just pain. Now we try to live. Actually live. Make Sarah proud, make your father proud. Raise Ruby to be better than us. Fix what's broken, protect what matters, and maybe find some peace. That sounds like a good plan. It's a start. Charlotte looked at him, this man who'd lost everything and somehow kept his humanity, who'd been weapon and protector, soldier and father, never losing sight of what mattered. Connor, what if I'm not good at normal? Then you'll fit right in. None of us are. She laughed, real and unguarded. Dinner tomorrow. After Ruby gets back, I should probably meet her properly if I'm going to help with butterflies. 6 o'clock. Ruby insists on mac and cheese Wednesdays. Mac and cheese, Charlotte tested the words like a foreign language. I can do that. As Connor watched her drive away to whatever hotel she'd chosen, he thought about second chances. About Sarah, who'd wanted him to be the warrior with a conscience. About Ruby, who saw everything and loved anyway. About Marcus getting a second chance at being a good brother. About Charlotte learning to be human again after years of being a ghost. His phone buzzed. Mike. News says Wellington's lawyering up, but the evidence is overwhelming. He's done. You did it, brother. Connor typed back, we did it. All of us. Another text, this one from Susan Chen. Marcus is being released tomorrow. Charges dropped due to coercion. He asked me to thank you. Then Agent Mitchell, this isn't over. Connor deleted Mitchell's message without responding. It was over enough. Wellington would face justice. Ruby was safe. And tomorrow a woman named Charlotte Adams would come to dinner and help with a butterfly project. It wasn't the life he'd planned. Sarah was still gone. That hole would never completely heal, but it was life real and messy and full of possibility. Connor Walsh stood on his porch looking at the stars Sarah used to love and made a promise. I'll raise her right, he whispered to the night. I'll teach her to be strong and good and brave like you. And maybe, just maybe, I'll learn to be happy again. The stars didn't answer, but somewhere he thought Sarah was smiling. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Mitchell might make good on her threats. The Torinos might call in their implied favor. Charlotte might struggle with normal life. Ruby might ask hard questions about everything that had happened. But tonight Wellington was in custody. Justice had been served. And a little girl would sleep safe in the mountains, dreaming of butterflies and dinosaurs, and a world where heroes still won. Connor went inside, locked the door, and prepared for tomorrow. The plumber was back, but the soldier would always be ready if needed. And somewhere between the two, he might find the man Sarah had always believed he could be, the warrior with a conscience who chose to build rather than destroy. In the morning, he'd pick up his daughter. They'd make breakfast together. Charlotte would come to dinner. Life would go on. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough.